I really want to get into this conversation. And I do have a special guest. So, before I get us really going, I'm going to introduce my guest. This woman I have known for, oh my goodness, it's been over 10 years. I have had the privilege of watching her grow and go through a full transformation in terms of who she started as and who she is and what she's up to in the world. And she's up to really interesting things. She hails from Toronto, Canada, and walked with me during my network marketing journey, and is now stepping out and doing really interesting things. Her focus is on wellness. And when we talk about wellness, we're talking wellness in its totality. We're talking health and wellness in terms of nutrition. We're talking health and wellness in terms of mental health. And she looks at the connection between nutrition and mental health, nutrition and productivity. Just who are we? What do we do when what becomes available when we decide to take care of ourselves? So please help me welcome my guest, Ms. Fozia Murtaza.
Hi, Suzanne. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Oh my goodness, I am too, Fazia. And you're one of those people that I get to dive into great conversations with. And I know we have had some great conversations. So now we're going to have one of those great conversations online.
Awesome.
And first of all, I just want you to just take a moment and situate the audience in terms of who you are and what you do and why you're so passionate about what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you. So my name is Fozia, and as Suzanne said, there's a connection between our mental health and our physical health, and I really came about to what I do now through my own journey of wellness. And when we think about wellness, we think about that physical wellness, and we don't understand, or I myself didn't understand, that on my journey to my physical well-being, I kept getting stuck, and there was like these hurdles that I kept bumping into, and I couldn't move forward. It was like some progress, and then I'd be stuck, and then because you get stuck, life happens, and I would go off, and then I'd forget, and then I'd come back, and it was such an up and down roller coaster. And it wasn't until I actually decided to address mental health as being as important as physical health, and really looking at, not necessarily having gone through trauma, because I'm not talking about mental illness, but I'm talking about mental health. And we don't realize that each and every one of us has mental health that needs as much priority as our physical health. And so when I tied the two together, and I started to, take the journey with the two as parallel in regards to importance, I started to see differences. And I realized that it wasn't just my own well-being, but it was making such an impact in the way that I was showing up. And the things that I wanted to do, I was now feeling confident enough that I could step out and do them. So what I do now is I'm a stress prevention strategist, and I also work with people where I facilitate workshops in mental health and wellness recovery.
Wow. And it's been a joy to watch you move and go on this journey to this really important work. And I remember when you first started, we had a phone call and you got invited to really do some training and do some workshops. And I remember you kept saying to me, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready to do this work. I don't think I can. And I think what's really cool about the conversation we're going to have today is about not thinking you're ready and getting ready because something inside of you is tugging, and you know that the thing that you're not ready for, you're supposed to do.
Oh my God, so true. I remember those conversations. And I think you're putting it nicely by saying that I was saying I don't think I'm ready. I was actually in denial because I just thought, I don't need to do this. I have an idea of where I want to go, and I'm making progress and I'm doing it. but I was neglecting to understand the fact that, well-being and wellness has to be looked at a whole. It's not just one area. And I remember also having a conversation with you and telling you, Suzanne, my dream is like, I've just wanted to be a speaker. And you told me, you're like, start speaking. And I was like, who would want to hear what I have to say? But it wasn't until I, realized that I had a story to tell. And my story was about my journey. And so when I started to share that and I started to understand, like you said, the work has to be done. Just because we know where we want to go, we know what we want to do, doesn't mean we're ready to step out and do it. But it does mean we're ready to take baby steps in the direction of where we want to go.
And so, if you're just joining us, this is going to be such a great conversation. So, welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. Our topic today is why the person who sets the goal is not the same person who actually achieves the goal. And I'm sitting down with Fozia Murtaza, and we're talking about that distance, that gap between where you start and where you finish in terms of achieving the goal, and the transformation that happens in between. And Fozia is just sharing, if you're just joining us, when she first got the idea that there was this work she wanted to do, and she also knew that it was going to be work, that gap in between. And we were on the phone and she was saying, yeah, I'm not ready. I don't think I need to go through this training. I don't think I need to do all this stuff. What if, what if, what if? And so if you're sitting there and you've got a goal in your mind and it's worthy of your life, it's going to be massive and it's going to be filled with a bunch of what ifs. And the what ifs are the things you don't know. The what ifs are the things you're afraid of. The what ifs are the things that scare you. The what ifs are the things you don't even know that you're afraid of. And I remember one of the questions, and we'll really dive into this because I want you to share what happened when I asked you this question. Because it's a question I ask everybody. And I said, I asked you, Fozia, who you required to become to get to achieve this goal, and why does it scare you?
That's such a huge question, and it really is, understanding that where I wanted to go, I wasn't that person. And if I had already been that person, I'd already be where I wanted to be, right? But the work that we're talking about that needed to be done was internal. And that's super uncomfortable. It requires vulnerability. It requires transparency. And, I remember even now as I have these conversations with people as I'm helping them, I'm always learning new things about myself because there's so much, right? There's so many things that in our life we bury down deep. There's so many things that we want to pretend it never happened and we don't allow ourselves to process it. And so I'll be having a conversation, and when I'm done a session, and I'll sit there and I'll think, a whole bunch of stuff just surfaced for me. Why is that? And it's because it still requires ongoing work. That's the thing I think that's so key to remember. And it's a reminder for myself first, is the work is never completed. The work is ongoing, because as we continue to grow, as I continue to grow, and as I continue to learn new things, I start to learn new things about myself. And when I learn new things about myself, there's space for new things to surface. And then that requires a pause. It requires reflection. It requires process, and then dealing with it, and then being able to move forward.
I so hear what you're saying. And so one of the things I want to put all of this conversation in context for everyone that's listening, because reason why we're starting this series, we're going to do a goal setting series, or we are doing a goal setting series. And we're looking at what needs to happen truly when you set up a goals, or you set up a plan, or you set your vision for 2023. And one of the things is really, where am I starting and who am I required to become? And so, and for many of us, who we're required to become is a scary thing. And so I know for myself, and you can speak a little about this. The question, who was I required to become, came in my deepest moment of struggle. And I felt like I was failing, and I felt like I was failing life, period, in all sorts of different areas. And what my aha was, Fazia, was I was doing life the way I knew to do it. But I wanted to get to the next level. And I was fighting changing me. And my aha, and I want everybody to really get this, was that if I wanted to get to this next place, this next level, this person, this thinking, this way of being could not actually achieve it. And as you said, I had to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary. I don't know about anybody else. That's scary.
It's
So when we
it is.
talk about the work, Fazia, talk a little bit about what that is, because you said it's internal. What? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, you said a couple of things, and we everyone struggles. We all have struggles in life. But when we're in a place where we don't want to be, I was in a place where I didn't want to be. I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do. We're taught you have certain things that you're supposed to acquire. You get married, you have kids, you go to school, you get a career. Like, there's a list of things, and you can pick and choose from there. But when you do the things that you think you're supposed to do, and then you find yourself in a place where you're not happy, you start to wonder, what did I do wrong? Like, why did the plan that was laid out not work? This is not what life is supposed to be after doing all these things. And so I realized that I was not really in alignment with who I was. I
Mm,
was trying to match everything, make it a list. I was trying to be all the things that we're expected to be, whether it's culture, society, environment, upbringing. And it just didn't align with me on the inside. So it was like the inside and the outside were totally different. And it didn't reflect, right? And so, you know, I I was that type of person where you could just go to, and I would be the go-to person. Basically, I was there to help other people because I love helping people, but I didn't understand in what context, right? I thought, and everything goes back to childhood. Always, everything goes back to childhood and the influences and experiences that we had. But I found myself at a place where I was trying to be everything and do everything for everyone. I was, you know, always okay when you asked, how are you doing? And where automatic answer is, I'm okay. But inside, I wasn't okay. And it was when I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. And I thought, how did I get here? What happened to all those dreams that I had? What
mm,
about all the things that I wanted to do in my life? This is not what I thought my life was going to be like at this age. And so there was a huge breakdown. But I think, you mentioned struggles, and I think we look at struggles often, I know I did, as why is this happening to me? But when I was able to shift it and look at struggles as it's kind of pushing me to get myself out of this situation, right?
yeah.
Because we need friction before there's change, right? And so struggles and adversities, we can look at them as the friction that will force us, if we are open to step into change. And if we're adamant, we may stick it through and keep going through that same cycle, and the same hurdles and the same loop. It's not until I actually said, enough is enough. I'm just tired of this,
Mhm.
bumping into the same wall. I need to make a new route and new pathways for myself. And so that required going in and taking off the mask of I'm okay, what I now call the I'm okay syndrome. So taking off that mask of being okay and really saying, all right, what is it that makes me happy? And that was huge because, Suzanne, if you asked me what I didn't want in my life, I could give you a whole list of things. But if you ask me what I want in my life, I'd be like, I don't know, I just know I don't want this. So the first thing was finding out what it was that made me happy, because I had forgotten. So it was about rediscovering myself. It was about finding the things that really aligned and brought me joy. And all along, I knew somehow I had to be serving people because that's where my passion is. Um, but it didn't come to me until I was willing to do the journey for myself.
So I want to really kind of break a lot of what you said down for everyone listening. And I see Bono's listening. Welcome, Bono. So wonderful to see you. So for me, when I listen to you, I always break things down into a few categories. So how many of you listening, and if this relates to you, really say this is me, or let us know that we went to school, and school is very based on skills, education, and experience. So whenever we think of hitting a goal or achieving something new or expanding or changing what we do, we automatically go to skills, experience, education. And we go get those things and we think, okay, now I'm armed. So many of you might be getting ready to for 2023 and going, okay, there's these things I have to do, and I have to learn this, I have to go take this course, I have to go do this. And then nothing happens or little happens. Well, the thing that I began to realize, that's skills, but and experience, but what often gets in my way and what was getting in your way is Suzanne.
Yeah.
And what I mean by Suzanne, and what you're really talking about, is all the stories I've told myself about what I can and can't do, where I can and can't go, what I can and can't achieve, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what people will say, what will my family love me if I do this. I have all these stories playing out in my world. And unfortunately, those stories make things possible or impossible. My
Okay.
skills, it has to do with the work I'm required to do. And so part of what we're really talking about when we say, who are you required to become, we're not only saying, what are you required to learn and go get the skills, but who are you truly required to become? And for me, I figured out that required to examine. One was my thinking. Those are the stories I tell myself.
Mm-hmm.
Two was, how do I manage my emotional state? Fear, anxiety, frustration, overwhelm, fear.
Can we
Worry,
say fear?
all the things that stop me. How do I um, communicate when all those things are playing out? And how do I continue to move through the world when I might be stopped by all the things that are happening? And how do those things impact what I'm doing, my behaviors? And so, of course, this is where mindset work and mindset mastery came from. But what I realized was, I can learn all the skills in the world, but if I don't take care of who I am and how I handle challenges, circumstances, fears, anxieties, I'm going nowhere.
100%. 100%.
And
So true.
and so and why we wanted to have this conversation is that oftentimes we are we've got the best laid plan, but because we haven't done our internal work and we haven't asked the question, who am I required to become, we're going nowhere, because we're thinking the person who started the journey is going to be the person that ends the journey. And the friction and the resistance and the breakdowns and the not moving is your indicator that I like to say, you've met the edge of who you know yourself to be.
Mm,
And to get to the next level, you have to grow beyond who you are.
absolutely. That's so heavy. That right there is the secret sauce. That right there is the secret sauce, because it's so true. Like you're saying, I was this person, and I had created, like, my identity was wrapped up in who I was being. And that was like, the go-to person. It was the person that everyone could depend on. It was the person that just, wanted to be there and offer to help. And in all of that, I didn't realize that I had forgotten about myself. I had forgotten about myself to the point that I didn't recognize the person looking back at me in the mirror. And, when we talk about we have hopes and we have dreams, and I wanted a specific life, but because my identity was wrapped up in the life that I had, the hard part was peeling away those layers and saying, if I don't identify as this person, as being this person, showing up as this person, who am I? That's the scary question, right? Who am I? And so, I think if we talk about fear, because anything that is the unknown is fear. We don't know what's going to be there. And it's like, all right, if I make some changes, I don't know what's on the other side. So often, and for a long time, I stayed with how I was, because it was familiar. It was familiar because it was a struggle. It was exhausting, but it was the struggle and exhausting that I was familiar with and I knew how to manage, or so I thought. And
Oh, that was good. How many of you sitting in, I don't like where I am, but I don't know where I'm going, and where I am is familiar, and I know her and I know how to manage her. So I'm going to stay here. Let me add another layer. And if I change, grow, expand, I'll lose people.
and I did lose people. Yeah.
I'll rock the boat. I'll be disruptive. People won't like me. People will ask questions. And this is what we go through. And this is what we go through secretly, I think. So let's look at how